While Stellar Crown brought plenty of exciting cards to the Pokemon TCG, with Terrapagos, Noctowl, Rotom, and Bouffalant promising to bring a brand new archetype into the game, it was really Dusknoir and Dusclops that took the spotlight this weekend, combined with Sparkling Crystal to propel Dragapult all the way to the top. Whilst we all had heated debates on whether Pidgeot or Xatu were the best partners for it, turns out the final answer was neither, and all it needed was a support from Tatsugiri, Rotom, Lumineon, and Serendipity, as well as the Dusknoir line to push it from the depths of Tier C all the way to the top. The Stellar Crown format is just starting, as we've just had the first two of a stream of 8 tournaments that will be played in this format, with Dortmund and Joinville having taken place already and being won by Dragapult and Lugia respectively, with Lima, Louisville, Lille, Gdansk, Buenos Aires, and the first international of the season LAC in Sao Paulo yet to come. While this weekend we finally saw Lugia take a well-deserved win over in Brazil and Dragapult won in Germany, piloted by a Japanese player, it's really all been about Dusknoir this weekend. Both Dusclops and Dusknoir came out in the Shrouded Fable set just in time for the 2024 World Championships, but they had very little impact there, and only in Charizard decks. However, this weekend was a whole other story now that Stellar Crown is out. Dusknoir has taken the format by storm thanks to new partners such as Terrapagos, as well as being the perfect complement for a lot of powerful decks such as Dragapult, Palkia, Charizard, and even Raging Bolt. The Curse Blast ability allows you to knock out either Dusclops or Dusknoir to place 5 or 13 damage counters respectively on one of your opponent's Pokemon. There is no limit to how many of these you can use in a single turn, and of course you might be thinking that giving up a prize card might not be the best idea, as that's how your opponent can win. But there are many situations where the risk of giving up a prize card is worth the reward, and you can get a lot of benefit from the extra damage and also gifting your opponent prize cards by taking advantage of powerful cards like Counter Catcher, Iono, and Bloodwind or Saluna. By allowing you to have some sort of control over both your and your opponent's prize mapping, you can create alternate win conditions that would otherwise not have been possible. We saw the perfect example of this during the asymmetrical top cut match in Dortmund, where the eventual champion Ryoki Okada took down the most decorated player in the game, Tord Reklev. Winning a very quick game 1 with 2 attacks, they were then able to set up a 5 prize turn perfectly thanks to the damage manipulation of Radiant Alakazam's Painful Spoon's ability and Dusclops' Cursed Blast, whose 5 damage counters were just enough to take down 2 Hood and a Pidgey, as well as the active Terrapagos.
Oh my goodness gracious, they're going everywhere. There's Dreepy, there's curses, there's a handshake. Is it happened? Have we done it? We took 5 prize cards in 1 turn.
My goodness.
This is just one of many examples where being able to place damage counters wherever you need them as a bonus during your turn can be game changing, and will make the games we play even more dynamic and perhaps a tad bit faster too. If you use 2 Cursed Blasts during a game, that means you likely took 2 prizes with them, but so did your opponent, and this happens during your turn, so the game is essentially being shortened by a complete turn for both players. Now, let's take a look at some of the decks that are taking advantage of the Cursed Blast ability that were so successful this weekend. Don't forget that you can watch videos 24 hours earlier if you become a channel member by following the link in the description below. This kind of support helps me continue to create content like this, so please consider becoming a channel member if you enjoy the content. Let's start with Terrapagos. This deck has quite a few variations, but the most successful one by far is a more aggressive based build including Dusknoir to help boost its damage output and allow it to hit multiple targets at once. With a whole colorless crew of Noctowl, Rotom, Bouffalant, and Pidgeot helping support the deck, it is very appealing overall. The one big downside for this deck is the self-limitation of not being able to attack with it during your first turn if you went second, but that didn't stop it from being the most represented deck in Day 2 of Dortmund Regionals, though falling just shy of top 8 with Tord Reklev placing 9th after losing the asymmetrical match where we saw the crazy 5 prize turn, and Grant Manley losing a win and in after allegedly prizing both Pidgeot and both Colress's Tenacity, losing him the match. The story was different over in Brazil though, as the same Terrapagos Dusknoir 60 card list placed 2nd and 4th at that regional. Clove also made top 8 there, but we don't talk about that. Tort went with a very standard looking Terrapagos list, no longer opting to play the crazy decks like the Charizard Dragapult he used at NAIC, the insane Singleton Charizard deck he played at Worlds, or the crazy Pidgeot control at Baltimore. The deck featured the usual colorless crew of Noctowl to help set up with Jewel Hunt, a thin 1-1 Pidgeot line for backup though not fully relying on it, and a couple of each Fan Rotom and Bouffalant which help support the deck but also are not the main stars of the show. Of course, it featured a 2-1-2 Dusknoir line to help either take down a benched Pokemon whilst taking 2 prizes on the active, or as a bonus to help Terrapagos reach for the extra damage, as with the deck as it currently stands, it caps at 220 damage. There were many, and I mean many other Terrapagos variants featuring thicker Pidgeot lines, different Dusknoir pieces, and Bouffalant or no Bouffalant. And while I have personally not been very impressed by the deck and ranked it in the B tier in my own tier list, this weekend shows undeniably that the deck is very good and a top tier contender moving forward. The next Dusknoir deck that has been doing really well is Palkia Dusknoir. Stefan Ivanov took this build to the top 4 of Dortmund Regionals, which was very similar to Grafton Roll's version of the deck that they used to get 9th place at Baltimore. However, Stellar Crown wasn't legal then, and as we can see, nothing has really been added to the deck from the new set. The Curse Blast ability has a lot of uses in this deck, starting with comboing really well with Palkia's Star Portal ability and Radiant Greninja. Those poor Manaphy on the benches have never been more threatened than they are now, as Curse Blast can take them out without the need to gust it up and use Cancel and Cologne to turn off the ability, so Radiant Greninja is able to just demolish benches of evolution decks with Moonlight Shuriken. It almost reminds me of the good old Greninja Break days, where I used to snipe multiple Pokemon left and right with Giant Water Shuriken in that magical undefeated run at the 2016 Mexico National Championship. But enough of the nostalgia. On top of utilizing Dusknoir to KO Manaphy's to pave the way for Radiant Greninja, you can also utilize a double Dusknoir snipe on 2 rulebox Pokemon with 220 HP or less, and then use Radiant Greninja to finish them both off, thus netting you 4 prizes in exchange for the 2 you gave up for. Pretty amazing, right? This way, you can double snipe Regidragos or Lugias, or support Pokemon such as Visindipity and Mew, or any other combination. You can also do this to even higher HP Pokemon such as Raging Bolts or Iron Hands if you utilize Greninja EX's Mirage Barrage, which is even more powerful than Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken. Now, you may be wondering how you would manage to do that if Greninja EX is Fighting type and therefore you can't power it up with Star Portal. However, Froakie is a Water type, so you just need to plan to power it up before you rare candy into Greninja, just as Stefan did during Game 3 of their top 4 match in what looked like an amazing position for him to be in at that point, even though he ultimately lost the match.
No, we Mirage Barraging?
Oh, there was a rare candy in the hand already, I think. So we're going to be seeing a knockout here on the active and the bench Pokemon.
Oh my goodness gracious me. So 2 more plus an attach per turn sets us up for another Mirage Barrage. The barrage is never gonna end.
And finally, either Dusknoir's or Dusclop's Curse Blast ability can be used to help with the math of taking KOs against an opponent that is actively playing around Palkia's subspace well by limiting their bench. You don't need them to have too many bench Pokemon if you are adding 130 prior damage with Curse Blast. All of this combines perfectly with the synergy with powerful cards such as Counter Catcher, the 4 Iono, and even Bloodmoon or Saluna, which is a great attacker and you can help unlock its attack through Season Skill by giving your opponent prizes as well as boosting its 240 damage cap. While the Palkia Terrapagos variant has been more popular overall in the 2 Stellar Crown events, likely boosted by the 5th place finish at the Tokyo Champions League the weekend before, the Palkia Dusknoir deck feels a tad bit more powerful in my opinion, and I would not be surprised to start seeing more of it in the next few events after Stefan's success with it in Germany. Next we have Charizard, which had a decent weekend placing in top 8 in Brazil after a top 4 showing in the Tokyo Champions League. Dusknoir was a huge addition to the deck when Shrouded Fable came out, giving the deck a whole new way to threaten an opponent, and now with Briar in the mix, Dusclops and Dusknoir's Curse Blast can actually force your opponent to have 2 prize cards even if they are trying to avoid being in that position, making it an even more serious threat. Being able to power up your own Burning Darkness attack by giving your opponent prize cards and also using those same damage counters as a huge damage buff to get some KOs on other high HP Pokemon that perhaps you'd have to 2-hit KO otherwise, such as opposing Charizards, Dusknoir and Dusclops have really added power to the Stage 2 deck, and they alone have allowed Charizard to keep competing at the highest level, as shown by the multiple players achieving Day 2 in Germany and Brazil in the first weekend of legal Stellar Crown decks. Charizard has had its ups and downs in the metagame, but it seems like Regidrago is going down in power and popularity overall thanks to the crazy Raging Bolt popularity, so expect Charizard to continue to be a top contender in this 8 event stretch, and so far it has proven true. However, just when Charizard thought it was done dealing with the damage counters from Regidrago copying Dragapult's Phantom Dive, Dragapult itself burst out onto the scene with full force by winning in Germany with a very unique list. When Twilight Masquerade was coming out, I asked myself the question, which supporting Pokemon would be the best one to be paired with Dragapult? But 2 sets later we finally have an answer. None of them. It was Dusknoir all on its own along with a supporting cast of Rotom, Lumineon, Fezandipiti and Tatsugiri that carried Ryoki to win the Dortmund Regional Championships in commanding fashion. After taking a loss in round 1, Ryoki never looked back and went on to win the whole tournament with this very unique version of Dragapult. 2 copies of Rotom is not something we have seen over on this side of the world, but it was a very common occurrence in City Leagues in Japan, especially when Charizard was dominating the field. In a deck that doesn't feature any supporting Pokemon such as Pidgeot or Xatu, it makes sense to want to have that extra out to Rotom and almost ensure it is never priced in a crucial moment by playing 2 copies. Lumineon and Fezandipiti round out the support to help the deck keep sustaining itself, but Tatsugiri was definitely crucial to Ryoki's success, especially in helping find that crucial R-Vent to find the most important card in the deck, Sparkling Crystal. This new Apex from Stellar Crown is what really brought Dragapult to the forefront, and whilst I knew it was good, I was pleasantly surprised to see such a dominant performance from the deck so quickly. Of course, if you prize your Sparkling Crystal you could run into trouble, and we did see the tool being invaluable in many of Ryoki's games on the stream. Well, let's not forget about Crispin and that crucial extra attachment and energy surge effect, which can also make a big difference and can be found by Tatsugiri's attract customers ability. Dragapult's Phantom Dive is amazing, and it only gets better with the Cursed Blast from Dusclops and Dusknoir being able to complement and help round out the perfect math on the bench with the extra damage counters to apply maximum pressure to an opponent each turn. Whether it's support Pokemon like Pidgey and Hoodhood or 2 prizers like Fezandipiti, no Pokemon is safe on the field, thanks to this powerful combination and a sprinkle of Radiant Alakazam's painful spoons to make sure we don't waste any damage on the board. This sort of damage manipulation strategy is very rewarding for players who can envision 2 or 3 turns ahead what the future board states will look like and what their exact price mapping will be, as even a single damage counter being positioned incorrectly could be the difference between becoming champion or dropping early out of a tournament. If you've been playing with or against Regidrago in the past few months, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But Dragapult now brings this strategy to a whole new level and seems like it has reclaimed the throne of best Dragapult deck from Regidrago's grasp. We had seen Dragapult do well and dominate City Leagues in Japan ever since it got released, but that success never translated to this side of the world, even during NAIC or Worlds. There weren't any Japanese players that really showed off or had good enough results with the deck. However, that has now changed, and with other skilled trainers such as Alberto Conti, Keito Arai and Marcos Cifuentes piloting Dragapult decks to success as well, Dragapult is now a very real threat, and all eyes will now be on the Peru event to see if it can continue to do well in the next major Stellar Crown tournament. Of course, there are other decks that utilize Dusknoir as well, such as the Raging Bolt that got top 8 in Germany played by Jan Husman, which featured a conservative 1-1 line with a single rare candy, as well as the original Turbo Banette Dusknoir deck created by Henry Brandt and a Darkrai V-Star Roaring Moon variant popularized by Tim Danklin. Some people are already calling this card too strong and also not enjoyable to play against, but that is very common to see when a powerful concept or strategy takes a format by storm, so it will be interesting to see how things develop over the coming weeks in the next few major tournaments. In my previous video, I asked the following questions to which we now have an answer to. Is Terapagos a lie? No, it isn't. It's clearly a top tier archetype that has now established itself in the metagame as a powerful threat. Will Noctowl become the Inteleon replacement we all wish it was? Probably not, as only Terapagos and Palkia are getting any use out of it, so it's not a general draw engine yet. Will Drippy finally top 8 a major tournament? Not only did it top 8, it won the whole thing. Is Iron Thorns a sleeper pick yet again? A couple people did make it all the way to top 8 with this deck this weekend in each regional. How will the Turbo Dusknoir decks perform? Stefan's top 4 with Palkia Dusknoir and Giovanni's second place with Terapagos Dusknoir prompted this video, so I'd say they performed excellently. And now the only question for me is, what will happen in Peru? I am playing that event and have been preparing for it quite intently, so I hope you'll be rooting for me, and if you aren't yet, follow me on Twitter and Instagram where I will try to share updates of my trip and tournament run throughout the weekend. As always, thanks for watching, and keep your eyes peeled and subscribe to his channel if you haven't yet, as we go deeper and deeper into Stellar Crown format and the era of the Stellar Terra Pokemon. Until next time! If you want to support the channel, you can use code tablemon to get 5% off at Potan Store for your online codes, 10% off for your sealed product at Flipside Gaming, and 10% off on your aluminum accessories at TC Evolutions. Or if you're looking to buy singles or sleeves, you can fill up your cart and close the tab, then click on the affiliate link in the description and check out. That way you can support the channel over at TCG Player, Card Market, and Dragon Shield. ¿Eres de México y necesitas cartas de Pokémon? Busca Hyperbeam Cards en Facebook e Instagram. Y si estás en Tijuana, búscalos en el local C27 en el Centro Comercial Otay.